can't see it, hear it, or smell it, but it makes unruly mobs do this. The Defense Department's active denial system, a non-lethal weapon that can be used to control crowds, secure perimeters, and keep pirates at bay. It could be a game changer.
This is one of the things that we can shoot first and ask questions later. Normally you can't do that.
The military says the active denial system is not radioactive, it's not a microwave, and it's not a laser beam. It's instead a man-sized beam of millimeter waves that can be fired from up to 1,000 meters away that are designed to get the subject, whoever's standing on this X, really, really hot so that they move. And it's about 50 degrees out here right now, but I just felt like it was about 1,000, and I've never been inside a tub that somebody dropped a hairdryer in, but I would imagine that that's what it feels like. After about 1.5 seconds, 1/64th of an inch of my skin was 130 degrees, but as soon as I stepped away, it was over. And the DOD says there aren't any lingering effects.
There's no cancer risk, there's no risk to a fetus or reproductive capability, it's just heat.
But the DOD admits this system does have a drawback.
We are propagating through the air. We are, therefore, relatively line of sight. And so we need to be line of sight with targets.
A prototype costs $10 million, and there are no plans to deploy one anytime soon. At Marine Base Quantico in Virginia, Peter Ducey, Fox News.
This is a test of the long-range acoustic device LRAD.
One acoustic device is gaining ground daily by being law enforcement's go-to choice for crowd control scenarios and search and rescue missions. That device is LRAD. I'm Terry Shepard, and this is Digital Justice. Robert, first question. What does LRAD stand for?
Long-range acoustic device.
Robert Putnam with LRAD Corporation gives the lowdown on this piece of popular yet contentious technology.
With the long-range acoustic device systems, we're able to project voice messages and alarm tones up to distances over 2 miles. It stays focused in a 30 to 60 degree beam, and by allowing us to do that, the people at the other end absolutely understand the instructions that are being given them, and we can give them the instructions in any language. We have a highly intelligible, very robust product now that's being sold throughout the world to militaries, commercial security, maritime security, and then also for wildlife protection and control. And for law enforcement, they appreciate having a device that really works for communication. Bullhorns just don't cut it. In large outdoor situations especially.
So how did this technology come about?
Genesis of LRAD really begins with the attack on the USS Cole in October of 2000. Here was a USS destroyer in a Yemeni port. They didn't know if it were fishermen or terrorists that were pulling alongside them until it was too late. They turned out to be terrorists, detonated, killed.
And we know what happened.
Yeah, we killed,
it was bad.
Killed many sailors, injured others, caused $1 billion of damage to the boat. And they had all this firepower on board, but they didn't know who these people were, so they couldn't take any action. Well, the whole point with LRAD is it fills a critical gap. How do we determine if they're friendlies or not, if they're not responding to radio calls?
When I got in front of the device, I could immediately hear its effectiveness.
This is a test of the long-range acoustic device LRAD. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
All right, guys, I have to say I'm a little worried walking up here like you're going to sneak in and turn it back on. Scott, you were the operator on that one.
Yes,
Thank you. Right off the bat, first impression, I felt like there was a dude standing right here yelling in my ear, but it was really clear.
Here you have the back of the head unit where all the electronics are housed. You got the power switch you turn on. Power is activated by the control unit, which you have an on-off position.
Right.
This is a standard MP3 player, so you can put whatever test files or any kind of audio media on this MP3 player.
broadcast effectively up to 2 miles away and very powerfully. You can mount it on helicopters, fly over and be able to broadcast messages to hopefully the people that you're trying to find. Cover a lot of area quickly rather than putting, in some cases, hundreds of people on the ground in the bushes trying to find people. And then for suicide situations from bridges or buildings, fire departments and high-rise situations.
It can also be used more in a bit of an offensive or a defensive manner. How does that work for that?
Well, I think you're referring to our alarm tone capability, basically. That's what's got most of the interest from people out there on the other side. We really don't look at this as any kind of a weapon, non-lethal or otherwise.
And though reluctant to speak on camera, law enforcement officials stand behind LRAD.
The alarm tone is mostly used especially in law enforcement applications, especially when protests get out of control or you get large crowds. And with LRAD, that fills that critical gap between bullhorns and rubber bullets.
But many groups, including the ACLU, have issues with LRAD.
I think LRAD has no place at public events and forums, especially ones that any free speech expression activity is too intimidating, it's too scary, and so chills speech that we want to encourage in a democracy.
Are these machines causing any harmful side effects to the eardrums and the senses? Some would say it is possible that they are. So that would be considered torture.
My wife had one used on her in Oakland. It was like a kind of psychological torture. Like it's in your brain and you can't think, you can't move.
I'd rather be tased, shot with a rubber bullet, maced, and then kicked in the balls than have my eardrums erupted.
Like anything else, if it's too loud, like a fire siren or a police siren, you put your hands over your ears.
Right.
By doing that, it cuts 25 dB of sound pressure level instantly. You can still hear it, you can still understand it, but it's not going to hurt your hearing.
Right. It's just a different thing to have this, magical voice being beamed at you or even bringing you down. Traditional public order policing has its value.
Well, I think you have some people out there, especially during protest situations, who view this as, hey, this is not allowing us to protest or do what we want. We know of one case in regards to the Pittsburgh G20 summit where LRAD was deployed.
By order of the City of Pittsburgh Chief Police, I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly.
And I think that was the first time that a police department had used LRAD in a high-profile event. And what they were interested in is keeping the property damage down and the number of arrests down. That's the bottom line of LRAD. It's the ability to use long-range, powerful, highly intelligible communication to resolve uncertain situations peacefully, to determine intent, and potentially save lives on both sides of the long-range device.
Guys, that was a really actually great demo. And maybe could I borrow this for a party? Come on. There you have it. In the eyes of law enforcement, LRAD is an effective tool that's used will certainly continue to spread. In the eyes of others, it's a potential weapon just waiting to be abused. No matter the opinion, it looks like LRAD is here to stay. I'm Terry Shepard, and this has been Digital Justice.
I became an inventor by accident. I was out of the Air Force in 1956. No, that's not true. I went in 1956. Came out in 1959, was working at the University of Washington, and I came up with an idea from reading a magazine article for a new kind of a phonograph tone arm. Now, that was before cassette tapes, CDs, DVDs, any of the cool stuff we've got now. And it was an arm that, instead of hinging and pivoting as it went across the record, went straight, radial linear tracking tone arm. And it was the hardest invention I ever made. But it got me started, and I got really lucky after that. And without giving you too much of a tirade, I want to talk to you about an invention I brought with me today. My 44th invention. No, that's not true either. Golly, I'm just totally losing it. My 44th patent, about the 15th invention. I call this hypersonic sound. I'm going to play it for you in a couple of minutes, but I want to make an analogy before I do to this. I usually show this hypersonic sound and people will say, that's really cool, but what's it good for? And I say, what is the light bulb good for? sound, light. I'm going to draw the analogy. When Edison invented the light bulb, pretty much looked like this. Hasn't changed that much. Light came out of it in every direction. Before the light bulb was invented, people had figured out how to put a reflector behind it, focus it a little bit, put lenses in front of it, focus it a little bit better. Ultimately, we figured out how to make things like lasers that were totally focused. Now think about where the world would be today if we had the light bulb, but you couldn't focus light. If when you turned one on, it just went wherever it wanted to. That's the way loudspeakers pretty much are. You turn on a loudspeaker, and after almost 80 years of having those gadgets, the sound just kind of goes where it wants. Even when you're standing in front of a megaphone, it's pretty much every direction. A little bit of differential, but not much. If the light bulb was the way the speaker is, and you couldn't focus or sharpen the edges or define it, we wouldn't have that, or movies in general, or computers, or TV sets, or CDs or DVDs, and just go down the list of what the importance is of being able to focus light. Now, after almost 80 years of having sound, I thought it was about time we figure out a way to put sound where you want to. I have a couple of units. That guy there was made for a demo I did yesterday, early in the day, for a big car maker in Detroit who wants to put them in a car, small version, over your head, so that you can actually get binaural sound in a car. What if I could aim sound the way I aim light? I got this waterfall I recorded in my backyard. Now, you're not going to hear a thing unless it hits you. Maybe if I hit the sidewalk, bounce around the room. The sound is being made right next to your ears. Is that cool? Because I have some limited time, I'll cut it off for a second and tell you about how it works and what it's good for. Of course, like light, it's great to be able to put sound to highlight a clothing rack or the cornflakes or the toothpaste or a talking plaque in a movie theater lobby. Sony's got an idea. Sony's our biggest customers right now. They tried this back in the 60s and were too smart, so they gave up. But they want to use it in the... Seriously, there's a mix an inventor has to have. You have to be kind of smart. And though I did not graduate from college, doesn't mean I'm stupid, because you cannot be stupid and do very much in the world today. Too many other smart people out there. So I just happen to get my education in a little different way. I'm not at all against education. I think it's wonderful. I think sometimes people, when they get educated, lose it. They get so smart, they're unwilling to look at things that they know better than. And we're living in a great time right now because almost everything's being explored anew. I have this little slogan that I use a lot, which is virtually nothing, and I mean this honestly, has been invented yet. We're just starting. We're just starting to really discover the laws of nature and science and physics. And this is, I hope, a little piece of it. Sony's got this vision, back to get myself on track, that when you stand in the checkout line in the supermarket, you're going to watch a new TV channel. They know that when you watch TV at home, because there are so many choices, you can change channels, miss their commercials. 151 million people every day stand in the line at the supermarket. Now, they've tried this a couple years ago and it failed because the checker gets tired of hearing the same message every 20 minutes and reaches out, turns off the sound. And you know, if the sound isn't there, the sale typically isn't made. For instance, like we're on an airplane, they show the movie, you get to watch it for free. When you want to hear the sound, you pay. And so ABC and Sony have devised this new thing where when you step in the line in the supermarket, initially it'll be Safeways. It is Safeways. They're trying this in 3 parts of the country right now. You'll be watching TV. And hopefully they'll be sensitive that they don't want to offend you with just one more outlet. But what's great about it, from the tests that have been done, is if you don't want to hear it, you take about 1 step to the side and you don't hear it. So we create silence as much as we create sound. ATMs that talk to you, nobody else hears it. Sit in bed 2 in the morning, watch TV, your spouse is, or someone, is next to you asleep, doesn't hear it, doesn't wake up. We're also working on noise canceling things like snoring, noise from automobiles. I have been really lucky with this technology. All of a sudden, as it is ready, the world is ready to accept it. They have literally beat a path to our door. We've been selling it since about last September, October, and it's been immensely gratifying. If you're interested in what it costs, I'm not selling them today, but this unit with the electronics and everything, if you buy one, is around $1,000. We expect by this time next year it'll be hundreds, a few $100 to buy it. It's not any more pricey than regular electronics. Now, when I played it for you, you didn't hear the thunderous bass. This unit that I played goes from about 200 hertz to above the range of hearing. It's actually emitting ultrasound, low-level ultrasound that's about 100,000 vibrations per second. And the sound that you're hearing, unlike a regular speaker on which all the sound is made on the face, is made out in front of it in the air. The air is not linear, as we've always been taught. You turn up the volume just a little bit, I'm talking about a little over 80 decibels, and all of a sudden the air begins to corrupt signals you propagate. Here's why. The speed of sound is not a constant. It's fairly slow. It changes with temperature and with barometric pressure. Now imagine, if you will, without getting too technical, I'm making a little sine wave here in the air. Well, if I turn up the amplitude too much, I'm having an effect on the pressure, which means during the making of that sine wave, the speed at which it is propagating is shifting. All of audio, as we know it, is an attempt to be more and more perfectly linear. Linearity means higher quality sound. Hypersonic sound is exactly the opposite. It's 100% based on nonlinearity. An effect happens in the air. It's a corrupting effect of the sound, the ultrasound in this case, that's emitted. But it's so predictable that you can produce very precise audio out of that effect. Now, the question is, where's the sound made? Instead of being made on the face of the cone, it's made at literally billions of little independent points along this narrow column in the air. And so when I aim it towards you, what you hear is made right next to your ears. I said we can shorten the column. We can spread it out to cover the couch. I can put it so that one ear hears one speaker, the other ear hears the other. That's true binaural sound. When you listen to stereo in your home system, both ears hear both speakers. Turn on the left speaker sometime and notice you're hearing it also in your right ear. So the stage is more restricted. The sound stage that's supposed to spread out in front of you. Because the sound is made in the air along this column, it does not follow the inverse square law, which says it drops off about 2/3 every time you double the distance. 6 dB every time you go from 1 meter, for instance, to 2 meters. That means you go to a rock concert or a symphony, and the guy in the front row gets the same level as the guy in the back row. Now, all of a sudden. Isn't that terrific? So we've been, as I say, very successful, very lucky in having companies catch the vision of this, from car makers who want to put a stereo system in the front for the kids, a separate system in the back. Oh no, the kids aren't driving today. I was seeing if you were listening. Actually, I haven't had breakfast yet. A stereo system in the front for mom and dad, and maybe there's a little DVD player in the back for the kids, and the parents don't want to be bothered with that, or their rap music or whatever. So again, this idea of being able to put sound anywhere you want to is really starting to catch on. It also works for transmitting and communicating data. It also works 5 times better underwater. We've got the military had just deployed some of these into Iraq, where you can put fake troop movements a quarter of a mile away on a hillside. Or you can whisper in the ear of a supposed terrorist some biblical verse. I'm serious. And they have these infrared devices that can look at their countenance and see a fraction of a degree Kelvin in temperature shift from 100 yards away when they play this thing. And so another way of hopefully determining who's friendly and who isn't. We make a version of this which puts out 155 decibels. Pain is 120. So it allows you